Welcome to the Pro Farmer Podcast, your source for what's impacting prices today and your guide to what will impact markets in the weeks ahead. More substance, less fuss. The Pro Farmer Podcast starts now.
Welcome to the Pro Farmer Podcast, everyone. Thanks for tuning in here. It's November 3rd, 2025. Hillary Mason now joins me. November already. Hillary, where does the time go? Am I right?
You're right. Like somebody asked me where October went, and I'm like,
Yeah,
what about the rest of the year?
exactly.
We
Exactly.
blink.
Well,
We
we've got
blink.
Thanksgiving coming up. We've flipped the calendar here. Got some terrific news that the market had been waiting for late last week. I feel like we're off to a good start here. Let's talk about Friday's closes. Last week, I didn't want to talk about Friday's closes. This week, I really, really do. I'm anxious to get your thoughts here. I'm going straight to the wheat because we got some news about the wheats over the weekend that kind of surprised me anyway. On Friday, December hard red winter wheat futures 11.5 cents higher, 524.5. The D soft red up, excuse me, 9 3/4, 534. And then the spring wheat closed up 2.5 cents, 553. Not quite as big a jump, but still headed in the right direction. What gives, Hillary?
Yeah, gosh. Wheat's been pretty awesome, but
Mhm.
the bean complex continues to steal the show. Obviously last week, big news out of China. They stepped in and made some purchases. So just big news there. And also too, the interest rate cut was also pretty friendly for the overall market as well. So yeah, just we're finally getting some positive news that we've been waiting for a long time, it seems like. So everyone's just just feeling pretty optimistic. Obviously funds are stepping in and buying, and so just feels a little better for the time being, although there are some skeptics around whether or not China will step in and fulfill their commitments. So time will tell. So
Well, that's the thing, and now the conversation, and I remember talking about this back during phase one, is okay, we've got a deal here. What does enforcement look like? What are the chances we actually see these sales? But there were some sales put on the books, weren't there, last week already? For
there
the
were.
soybeans anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, it happened almost right away, it seemed like, and so, yeah, but, we'll see. I think there's just a lot of cautious, although the optimism has crept back in the market, Davis, but
Mhm.
cautious optimism is kind of one of my favorite little, mantras. So I
Uh-huh.
think that's kind of the tone across the market. I don't think I'm alone in that sentiment, so.
No, and wise counsel indeed. On Friday, the Jan beans were 7.5 cents higher, 11.15 1/4. March beans up 8, 11.23 3/4. The July was up 9, 11.41. I like those 11 handles on beans here. Do you feel like there's something that needs to be done here now that we're seeing 11s?
Right. So, last week, Davis, Pro Farmer put out a sell signal, some advice to sell 1070 futures or better. And so I think, if you've got some sales on, you feel comfortable at that level, maybe we have a minute to wait and see if we can get a little bit more out of this thing. But again, I think it's something that we have to keep a very close eye on, and not let get away from us for sure. So we'll see now. And just looking at what beans and soy meal had done in October, Davis. Meal gained $55 from the October 1st low to actually last night's high.
Wow.
And then beans have rallied about $1.20. So big gains. I mean, if you're rewarding this rally, like, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you've got some sales on, if you got some coverage last week, I think there's a minute to kind of take a breather and wait and see what's next. Now, of course, we also have, next crop to think about. So yeah, just a lot to keep in mind and keep at the forefront of your thoughts as the days move on here. So
Let's turn our attention just a little bit to the cash market. I don't know if you have an impression or if you've heard anything really about major changes in the cash market, especially for beans. I know that especially northern basis was really struggling there for a while. Have
yeah.
you heard anything about improvements there in basis for soybeans?
Yeah, I think so. I think the demand, the soybean demand in the PNW with China stepping in, I think is definitely propping up soybean basis in the northern corn belt, which is again a blessing for those folks up there. Fortunately, I'm in kind of the lower Midwest, if you will, and we've had pretty strong basis aside from really early. Since harvest began. I mean, beans had a moment, right before harvest started, but
Yeah.
there's enough crush demand domestically, and with this export demand picking up, that's going to help prop up basis. So
Feels like the biggest news on the corn last week. The December contract filled the July 7 downside price gap, ended the week above 430. Dees on Friday was a penny and a quarter higher at 431 and a half. March up just a quarter of a cent, but that's at 444. May corn futures closed at 452 and a quarter. That one was unchanged. Cautious optimism, yes, I love it. Feels like there's a little more caution than optimism in the corn currently.
yeah, that resistance of the 200-day moving average, like that is a tough nut to crack, Davis. And so I think until beans probably take off and a little more earnestly, corn's probably going to hang low. Also too, I think there's just, with the government shutdown, there's a little more uncertainty on, so the supply and demand picture, although spreads and basis are certainly, telling us a story. So yeah, I think there's some cautiousness that lingers in the corn market, just because we haven't had the news to drive it like we have in the soybean complex. So, but
Absolutely.
this this
Yeah.
this wheat news. Sorry, Davis, to interrupt you,
No,
but
go
this
ahead.
wheat news could be a driver for the corn market too. So that's
Okay.
that's good.
Right, right. So, yeah, well, I guess that would make sense. We get wheat's kind of got a little excitement going. Beans got a little bit of excitement going. Of
Mhm,
course, corn's going to join the party. I mean,
I'm sure.
why wouldn't it? Am I right?
Exactly. Who doesn't want to party?
Well, let's take it over to the livestock. I mean, some rough and scary news. Some cattle producers are a little bit upset by what the Trump administration is suggesting on bringing beef prices down, cattle prices by extension. However, the market fundamentals really haven't changed. And to me, the cattle market seemed pretty resilient last week. Your thoughts?
Agreed. I think just the supply situation is going to keep. I mean, it's going to keep selling at limited for sure. I was
Mhm.
trying to think of the right thing to say there,
Yeah,
but yeah. So I do think that, demand is strong, supplies are tight. It's going to keep a floor in this thing, unquestionably. But I mean, obviously, you've got some spec traders that are saying, "Oh my gosh, I went out of this thing because it is front and center." I don't know if you watched 60 Minutes last night, Davis, but President Trump brought up high beef prices. So just having beef at front and center is going to flush out a lot of those speculative longs, which I think that was early last week. And so, but again, just knowing the supply and demand fundamentals, things are going to stay limited for the time being. So,
well, and I'm not sure that lean hogs enjoy that same resiliency. Let's just run the table here. Take us through hogs a little bit. Up 45 cents on Friday, on the December contract. Feb up 42 and a half. That one's up to 82.52 and a half. And even that feels like it might be getting a little bit expensive for some of these speculators, Hillary.
yeah, the hog market has definitely been pressured by the weakness in cattle. The cash losses have just been, or cash declines have just absolutely pressured lean hogs. But we did see some consolidation last week, which kind of tells me, hey, something big is about to happen, either to the upside or the down. We have met some pretty strong support and nearby lean hogs. So I think that the downside's limited unless cattle decide to edge lower. So and also losses in the cash index have kind of slowed down a little bit. They're not quite as hefty. So that's kind of a positive sign. We do have holiday demand picking up. Or retailers should start ramping up holiday features. So yeah, we could start seeing kind of a turn here as the calendar year ends and holidays start to creep up on us even closer. So
You bet. Nothing like a Christmas ham, if you
that's
ask
right.
me.
I'm
Um, Before I let you go, talk to me about the week that's coming up. What a couple of things maybe that you're looking for that we should be looking out for.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, I mean, we'll have some jobs data out later in the week, but and it's not necessarily this week, Davis, but we didn't. I think we should definitely talk about it. But USDA did report last Friday that they will be releasing a crop production report and WASDE data on November 14th. It was originally scheduled for a week from today, but it will be released on November 14th, and also we'll get a cattle on feed report on its original release date of November 21st. So those are some things that traders are really going to start focusing on, even though they're not this particular week. They are upcoming, and they're going to be they're going to be widely anticipated, I think. So
Hillary Mason, I love our chats here on the Pro Farmer Podcast. I appreciate you. Have a great week. I'll cut you loose with that. Coming up, I'm going to walk through some of the recent news stories with Bill Watts and just find out what he thinks we ought to be focusing on here on the Pro Farmer Podcast.
Hey everyone, Davis Michelson here, and if you're one of the listeners without access to Pro Farmer's daily market reports and policy insights, this message is for you. Right now, you can start a free trial to Pro Farmer, unlocking the same profit-boosting information that farmers have trusted for over 50 years. Sign up online at tryprofarmer.com. No credit card needed. Visit tryprofarmer.com to sign up and get more details and updates on the topics we're discussing today, plus much, much more.
Get the latest markets, weather, and rural news whenever it works for you. Farm Journal TV is on Roku, Fire TV, and mobile. Try it for free for 14 days and take ag with you everywhere.
And welcome back to the Pro Farmer Podcast. Sure glad that you're along with us this morning. Joining me now, Pro Farmer editor Bill Watts. Bill, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Davis. Yeah, good morning. It's balmy start to November here.
Balmy indeed. We got some frost over the weekend here in Kansas City. I was actually really looking forward to sort of crossing that barrier, and man, we hit it hard. We had some two-handle temperatures overnight here in KC a couple of times. So yeah, there's definitely a change in the air. A change in the air on the China conversation. Big deals. Last week, there were some purchases made. Hillary was talking about cautious optimism. I think that's a good stance. I'm just wondering what's your wide view on what's been said between the U.S. and China, where the trade relationship is, and where it might go from here, Bill.
Right, and we have seen China actually step in and make some purchases here, which is encouraging. We also seen some talk, some wheat buys as well. So, and that really last week. We saw the market get propelled higher here. We saw, really, strong monthly closes really across the board here for soybeans and the grains as well. So, it does seem like we have some momentum as we roll into November here. And obviously a lot of that optimism in soybeans around the China deal. It does look like the idea is, 12 million metric tons by the end of the year, early January, and then that 25 million, in subsequent years. I guess the thing to keep in mind there, though, is this is coming in the context of a 1-year trade truce around, these other issues that have really dogged the U.S.-China trade relationship. So while this is certainly encouraging and does seem, has been, undoubtedly bullish, I think there is, question down the road, what happens, is this, how enforceable is this? What happens if the trade relation frays over these other issues going forward and things like that? But for now, it's certainly a different picture than we were looking at a couple of weeks ago.
Mhm.
So I think the market seems content to kind of run with that for now.
Well, and And Bill, tell me if I'm wrong, but I sort of feel like the setup here is last weekend. Scott Bessent came out and said, "Hey, I've been talking with China's negotiators. We've got a framework trade deal. Everything looks pretty good. We just need Trump and Xi to get together and shake hands on the deal. We need to see some sales." And I sort of feel like some of the enthusiasm in the market was front loaded. Now we did finish in the 11s in the Jan, the March, and the July in the soybeans on Friday. But I guess maybe I have the sense that any market reaction may have been fleshed out. Not that I expect us to pull back from here necessarily, but given what you've just said, the uncertainty that still surrounds this agreement, um, it almost feels like we've had our bump here from the news, and this is about what we're going to get from the China news. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the market's going to want to see more details and continue to be fed here on in terms of what's going to actually come together. Um, but I think that we also still, it does seem like maybe we saw some, we did see some farmers selling and things going into this. So the I think this move into the 11s is really intriguing because we know there is that sort of that idea that the market doesn't, soybeans don't like to stay in with an 11 handle for long. So, it could be an important inflection point here and an important test for the market. So we'll see where it goes.
Well, and a spotlight's been shined on the wheat market where China is concerned over the weekend as well. That one kind of comes out of left field for me, Bill.
Yeah, that was, I think, a surprise. I was first we've seen them in quite some time here, so certainly encouraging. It seems like at least in the near term, and we did see a lot of strength in wheat, or at least early in the week last week. So, I think people want to see if we can keep that momentum going. But wheat was also a market where we saw a good look on the monthly charts as we brought October to a close.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Bringing it closer to home here, interest rates, we got the 0.25% interest rate cut as expected. Now, I guess I would just wonder, I've seen some murmurings that maybe future cuts are a little less certain. Is that what you're hearing as well? What impact might that have on us?
Yeah, I think it was. I think the real surprise coming out of the meeting was the way that Fed Chair Jerome Powell really pushed back on the idea of a December rate cut. And I think that's still probably the most likely thing, is that we do get a quarter point. But he really wanted to make sure that the market didn't get ahead of itself, I think. And he really argued for the case that it's not a foregone conclusion. And it does seem clear that we're starting to see some real divisions emerge on the Federal Open Market Committee. You have these concerns about the labor market and job openings, and just signs of weakening there. Versus this inflation that does remain sticky above the Fed's target. So that's created that conundrum that they've that just extends that conundrum that they've been dealing with there. And I think maybe led to this idea that things might not be so clear cut, at least in the near term. So as a result of that, we did see the dollar strengthen. We saw Treasury yields go back up, and maybe that was a little bit of a headwind for the market towards the end of the week as well. So I think that's something that bears watching as we go forward here. Do we see some further dollar strength, and that will probably take its cue from short-term Treasury yields.
I've heard complaints, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. I've heard complaints that the Fed is a little too transparent. There's no surprise when they make a move one way or the other, and that's been the case for quite some time now. Would you favor a Fed that maybe holds its cards a little closer to its chest, or do you like this environment of transparency?
Yeah, I think the question around transparency, it kind of depends on the circumstances. I think there was a time, certainly during the post-financial crisis and other times where being transparent, providing a lot of what the Fed calls forward guidance, help them, achieve their goals. Not so sure in other times whether it is so helpful to them or not, where maybe a little bit more mystery would actually serve them well. You go back in time. You compare the current Fed to the past. The Fed has become increasingly transparent over the years. We get a press conference after every meeting. We hear from Fed officials, an awful lot. You go back, the Greenspan era, he was very cryptic. You go back to Paul Volcker, he didn't really tell you anything, right? And before the early 1990s, you didn't even get a Fed announcement. You had to divine what they had done from what they, what their operations were in the open market. So, it's really been a massive sea change over the last 3 decades or so in terms of that. And I think at times there probably are times where being a little less transparent would maybe work to their benefit in terms of achieving their policy goals.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, just one more thing here. It sounds like USDA's NASS, National Ag Statistics Service, is going to release some reports, some key reports in November. We got a couple of milk production reports. We got crop production and the WASDE report coming out, and a key cattle on feed report, that one due out on November 21st. This despite the government shutdown. Bill, we need this information here. How do you feel like the market is doing without this? We missed a whole bunch of data in October. Now we've got some November data to look forward to. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and it's been interesting, the market taking its cue from spreads and from, the cash basis and other, I think some just, alternative data sources. We've seen this, kind of across financial markets, but it's really interesting in the ag commodities. You do see people taking their cues from that, but, there's still a lot of questions about, who exactly has been buying. We've seen decent export inspections. We've continued to get that data, but we don't know who's been out there. We don't know actually what China's been doing this whole time necessarily, or others. So, I think there's still a lot of mystery. I think there's still a lot of questions about what we're going to actually see out of these USDA reports. So I don't know how much they're going to end up clarifying things. I think people want to kind of figure out exactly how they're going to put these reports together, given that you do have a lot of USDA employees who've been furloughed. So who's going to get called back? Some things are probably easier to start back up than others. But I think right now the question is sort of what's going to actually be in these reports and how are they going to be constructed. I think people want to hear that before they get too excited about what's to come.
Well, we'll have all the details at ProFarmer and ProFarmer.com. Bill, looks like there'll be plenty to write about this week, plenty to talk about. So we'll look forward to what's coming up and hope to talk to you again real soon. Bill Watts, editor of ProFarmer. Thanks for taking the time this morning, buddy.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here.
And thank you for being here and for watching the ProFarmer podcast. For all of us here at ProFarmer, it's Davis Michelson.
Thanks for joining us. We'll return next week with another episode of the ProFarmer Podcast. And remember, everything talked about today is updated throughout the week on ProFarmer.com and in this Friday's ProFarmer newsletter.